The fifth part of the cognitivism is to do with Newell and Simon's theory of information processing. In 1972, Alan Newell and Herbert Simon published a book called Human Problem Solving, in which they introduced the problem space theory of problem solving. We are going to discuss what they mean by problem space theory. Problem solving in human is goal directed and takes place by search in a problem space, that is by considering one knowledge state after another until a desired knowledge state is reached. So it is basically looking at the space and looking at the procedures which is there in terms of leading one or enabling one to solve a problem by enabling him or her to move from one state to another. The search may involve backup, which means return to old knowledge states. So when you are, in terms of solving a problem, you are moving from one state to another, your shift is basically on the basis of certain parameters or certain knowledge indicators. It can involve a backup in a sense that when you are moving from one state to another and you find that state or the second stage not helpful, you can move back to the previous stage, which is the current state of a problem, and then taking another stance and moving towards next stage. In this theory, people solve problems by searching in a problem space, which consists of initial stage or initial state, which is the current state, the problem or the current state having a problem as it is, the goal state, which is basically the end state where you are hoping to have the desired result, and all possible states in between. Now that is what you called a problem space. The action that people take in order to move from one state to another are known as operators. Newell and Simon proposed information processing system for problem solving. They have given their analysis of problem solving from an information processing perspective, and they focused on the four main features of their analysis. Number one is identifying the problem space. The first state of an analysis is of a problem or identification of problem. That is to identify the initial and goal state. These two states define the boundary of the problem space. The larger the distance between the two states, the larger the problem solving. So basically, it's not only the identification of the problem space, but rather the identification of distance there is in terms of understanding the first state and the second state. Second is identifying some of the intermediate states between the initial and goal state. Identifying some of the intermediate states refer to the fact that only for trivial problems can the solver go directly from the initial state to the goal state. There are usually going to be relatively stable, describable intermediate states which need to be reached. Both the problem solver and the analyst may need to know these parameters. Identifying what needs to be done, the moves, what needs to be done and how one has to make a move and what those moves are, which enable the problem solver to get from one state to another. In order for a problem to be solved, there has to be some procedure by which the situation is transformed from one state to another. So, how to go about it, how to move, or what those moves are when we are dealing with the particular process of moving from one state to the other. The fourth point is identifying the resources, which are knowledge, skills, material, personal, and time needed to execute each of the moves. So there is identification of the resources which are required in order to fill in that problem space. Information processing system has an analysis follows what happens from the beginning of a task, such as being given a problem to solve, to the end with the problem solved. So the complete process or the complete procedure from the start when the problem is presented and then when the problem is solved. It has the following features or following components. Receptors. Receptors are your senses. Processors transform, interpret, integrate, select attention set, automatic and control processes. So these are the processors which are activated in the process of problem solving. Memories, long-term, short-term, working. Effectors, that when you are using your muscles or when you're speaking or you're giving the output, those are the effectors. And all these 1, 2, 3, 4 parameters, they constitute the complete information processing of solving a problem. Now we have an image of decision-making process, and you can see different components and factors united together help in an individual coming up to a certain solution of a problem. The first is identifying the problem and connected to analyzing the problem. So first what the problem is and then the analysis of the problem, connected to developing an alternative solution after the understanding, then selecting the best solution, converting decision into action, follow-up of action taken. Now, if you look at it, it's not just moving from here to here. We can see that from analyzing the problem, you can move to the developing, and this process of decision making is also linked to all these stages. That it relies on the identifying of problem, it helps in the process of decision, how it is analyzed, how alternatives are considered in terms of selecting the best solution, converting the decision, and following up, also together constitute or contribute to the process of decision making. So you see that problem space takes into account all these 6 dimensions as crucial in coming up with the process of decision making. So that was a very normal procedure for solving problem, but for novel problems or any complex or different nature of a problem, Newell and Simon proposed that operator selection is guided by cognitive shortcuts known as heuristic. That is something which can bring about a quick result but might not be optimal. The simplest heuristic is repeat state avoidance or backup avoidance. There is no provision for repeating or going back. There is no backup, whereby individuals prefer not to take an action that would take them back to the previous state. Now this is, and as far as heuristic approach is concerned, that is discouraged. This is unhelpful when a person has taken an inappropriate action and actually needs to go back a step or more. But this particular approach, heuristic approach, discourages a problem solver to go back or consider any backup. So it has to follow a quick process of solving a problem, which can bring about the results, but those results might not be optimal. To conclude, according to Newell and Simon, problem solving in human is goal-directed and proposed information processing system which looks into all the happenings from the beginning of the task till the end with the problem solved.